In a parallel universe, there exists a world where the legendary science fiction writer William Gibson's Alien 3 screenplay was brought to life. A world where the Alien franchise could have been so much more than we ever imagined. In this dimension, there would have been no shortage of bold, weird, and mind-bending ideas that propelled the series into uncharted territory. Gibson's script was poised to redefine what the iconic xenomorphs could symbolize: genetic intellectual property locked away by corporations, and even the resonance of pandemics. It was a script that promised to be a true geek roller coaster. Unfortunately, this extraordinary script never saw the light of day. Now, you might be wondering how we're going to explore this intriguing what-if scenario. Well, hold on to your space helmets, because this alternate dimension is none other than the world of the comic books we're diving right into. That's right, folks, in this episode, we're peeling back the layers of this hidden gem and taking a trip through the uncharted territories of the Alien universe. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you, let's begin. Alien 3, the unproduced screenplay number 1. The USS Sulaco is on its way back to Earth after that epic mess in Acheron. But guess what? The ship's GPS has a glitch, and it takes a wrong turn into the Union of Progressive People's territory. Yep, that's like accidentally driving your car into a neighbor's garage. Oops. Now here's where it gets interesting. 3 brave UPP commandos ready for action intercept the Sulaco and board it like they're the galaxy's most determined delivery crew. What could possibly go wrong, right? Well, let me tell you. As soon as they set foot on the ship, it's like they stumbled into the cosmic equivalent of a haunted house. You won't believe what they find. Remember Bishop, the android with the detachable upper torso? Well, it turns out he's taken a cosmic nap in his hypersleep capsule, but he's got a little surprise for anyone who dares to disturb his slumber. A xenomorph egg has sprouted from his severed upper torso. It's a freaky alien flower garden, but instead of petals, you get facehuggers. And in the blink of an eye, chaos erupts. A facehugger bursts forth and decides to treat the UPP commander's leader, Kurtz, like a cuddle buddy. He's wrestling with the creature like it's a hot potato, and his comrades, Chang and Wan, are left with no choice but to hightail it out of there faster than the Millennium Falcon making the Kessel Run. They grab Bishop's torso along the way because, well, why not? It's not every day you find an alien egg party on a spaceship. The USS Sulaco is chugging along towards the Anchor Point space station, but it's greeted with a less than warm welcome, a quarantine notice. Yep, they've slapped a keep out sign on that spaceship. And just when you thought things couldn't get weirder, enter the dynamic duo of Weyland-Yutani, a multinational conglomerate executives, Fox and Wells. These two corporate big shots have swooped into Anchor Point. What's their gig, you ask? Well, they're here to crack the cosmic case of why the Sulaco took an interstellar detour into UPP territory. But wait, Rossetti, the head honcho of the space station, is having a cosmic crisis of faith. He's giving these suits the side eye and muttering about the suspicious timing of their arrival. You see, he's got a point. The Sulaco took its wrong turn long after these corporate suits took off from the Gateway, a large geosynchronous space station orbiting Earth. But Fox and Wells drop a bombshell. They're not your average corporate executives. Nope, they're from the weapons division. Apparently, the Sulaco went off the beaten path because of some weapons-related material that decided to wake up from its space nap on board the Sulaco. Rossetti's horrified, but when the higher-ups back on Earth started pulling the strings, he's left with no choice but to do a corporate shuffle. It's an interstellar showdown with more twists than a time-traveling DeLorean. Alien 3, the unproduced screenplay number 2. The quarantine sweep is about to be commenced on board the Sulaco. And who's on the cleaning crew, you ask? Well, it's the station's biotech team, featuring the dynamic duo of Spence and Tully, colleagues by day, lovers by night. Oh, and let's not forget the corporate suits Fox and Wells, who are here to make everything more complicated than a Rubik's Cube in zero gravity. As they navigate the ship, they stumble upon the remaining survivors, Newt, Hicks, and Ripley. But Ripley, the fearless space explorer, is in a deep coma thanks to some accidental cryotube mishap caused by those commandos. Now, the crew's not done yet. They go on a scavenger hunt and manage to retrieve Bishop's severed legs. But that's not all. Fox and Wells, our corporate space detectives, stumble upon the body of Kurtz, and it's like something out of a cosmic horror flick. His chest is wide open, and it's not because he wants to show off his space six-pack. Nope, it's a chest-bursting wound that would make any sci-fi fan's jaw drop. Back on Anchor Point, the Weyland-Yutani Army bigwigs are doing some serious debriefing. Hicks and Newt are sworn to secrecy about the whole Acheron ordeal, like they're some part of a secret club. And as if that's not enough, they also put Spence, an ecology technician, and Tully on the case to examine those delightful biological samples they found in Bishop's leg. Over on the UPP space station, Rodina, there's a group of scientists who've decided to play with fire. I mean, xenomorph material. And where did they find this stuff? Well, it just so happens to be the other half of Bishop's body. Now, these brainy scientists have looked into their space crystal ball and decided that the Anchor Point crew is probably up to the same experiments. But they're well aware that their little experiments break some pretty important arms reduction treaties between the big cosmic powers. But fear not, because we've got Diplomatic Officer Rivera in the mix. This savvy space diplomat has a plan up their sleeve. They decide to patch up Bishop, who's been through more scrapes than an asteroid on a collision course, and send him back to the Anchor Point. It's a Trojan horse gambit, but with androids. Meanwhile, back on Anchor Point, things are getting as wild as a cantina scene on a Star Wars movie. The Sulaco gets a much-needed repair, and it's finally cleared to head back to Earth. Oh, and they've got Newt on board for the ride. But there's an accident in the lab. Tully and Wells, in an act of terror, get exposed to some xenomorph genetic material. You know what that means. It's quarantine time for them. And just when you think things couldn't get crazier, the poor technician responsible for cleaning up after the lab mishap meets a grisly end. Why, you ask? Well, because there's a xenomorph drone on board, and it's got a bone to pick. It was a stowaway in the damaged cooling unit, and it's on a mission to cause interstellar havoc. Alien 3, the unproduced screenplay number 3. So there's Spence, the concerned scientist who's having a major uh-oh moment about these ongoing experiments. You know it's bad even when the nerdy scientist is hitting the panic button. She decides to spill the space beans to Hicks, the Marine, and one of the survivors on board the USS Sulaco. Hicks, not one to shy away from action, decides it's time to play the hero and put an end to these experiments that are more disastrous than Jar Jar Binks' comedy career. So they march up their way to the lab like they're storming the Death Star to destroy those pesky samples. It's a showdown of epic proportions, and you can practically hear the sci-fi soundtrack building up the tension. They succeed in their mission, but before they can high-five each other, they get a rude surprise. Rossetti, the station's top dog, and Wells, who moments ago was just a corporate suit, have a twist. Wells transforms into a xenomorph hybrid right before their eyes, and you can guess what happens next. The xenomorph hybrid goes on a cosmic rampage, taking out Rossetti before doing a runner with his body. In the aftermath of the cosmic kerfuffle, Spence decides to play detectives and goes hunting for Tully, who's gone all "I'd rather be frozen than become a xenomorph" in the freezer. It's like a desperate sci-fi attempt at a self-preservation. The survivors regroup in the station's command center, only to find it looked more battered than the Millennium Falcon after a space dogfight. Why? Because Fox, who's clearly been reading the villain handbook, went full-on destruction mode. He obliterated any chance of calling for help and spilled the beans on Weyland-Yutani's experiments. Oh, and he's also got a thing for blowing up escape pods, which is unfortunate because Hicks somehow manages to launch Ripley to safety in one. Alien 3, the unproduced screenplay number 4. Things have gone from bad to aliens in a hurry. Hicks, our resident Marine, is about as shocked as someone realizing they're out of popcorn at a movie night. He's just found out that the only weapons on Anchor Point are about as effective as a squirt gun against a xenomorph onslaught. We're talking about a suit gun with a mere 5 rounds left and a handful of grenades that somehow ended up in the same category as office supplies. But Hicks, being the hero that he is, decides it's time to go full Rambo in space. He's arming up like he's preparing for the mother of all sci-fi showdowns. It's like watching John McClane strap on his boots and load up on die-hard catchphrases. Now, you'd think these things get a bit crazier, but you'd be wrong. Hicks suggested a plan so extreme, it makes jumping to hyperspace look like a leisurely Sunday drive. He wants to overload Anchor Point's reactor and blow the whole dang space station to smithereens. Yep, he's proposing to give the off switch a tap. That would make the Death Star explosion look like a sparkler on the 4th of July. And you'd know it's a solid plan when the survivors witness the UPP doing the same thing with their space station. The experiments have gone haywire there too, and the UPP decides it's easier to nuke it from orbit. With their cosmic clock ticking, the survivors huddle together and hatch a plan to escape on a maintenance craft. They're hoping for a miracle, a rescue ship that swoops in at just the right moment. Alien 3, the unproduced screenplay number 5. While Bishop takes on the heroic task of setting the reactor for an explosion finale, our band of survivors embarks on a perilous trek across the space station. And speaking of xenomorphs, guess who shows up along the way? Yep, it's that pesky hybrid causing trouble like a party crasher. They've got to fend off this monstrosity while trying to reach the docking bay, and it's like navigating an alien-infested maze. But when they finally reach their destination, Hicks stumbles upon Fox, who's been cocooned alive inside his ship by that menacing drone. It's like a sci-fi version of The Fly, only with more screaming and fewer teleporters. Hicks, with a heavy heart, decides to put Fox out of his misery with a grenade. Just when you think it's all over, the hybrid rears its ugly head once more. It's like trying to kill an intergalactic cockroach that just won't die. But the drone from the Sulaco swoops in like an Avenger and decides it's time to clean house. It rips the hybrid in half like a scene out of a wrestling match. And then, just when you thought it was the hero of the story, it turns on our survivors. In the nick of time, Chang, our UPP interceptor pilot, arrives like a savior. She's escaped Rodina before it went kaboom and is here to rescue the gang. They evacuate just in time, leaving Anchor Point to become the ultimate fireworks display. In the end, only Hicks, Spence, and Bishop make it out alive. Like the survivors of a horror epic, the rest of the station goes up in a blaze of glory. And you can practically hear the interstellar explosions from here. As our survivors sit tight, Bishop, our resident android with more wisdom than Yoda, plays the role of an interplanetary doctor. He checks out Hicks and Spence and declares them infection-free, which is a relief because we've had enough xenomorph drama to last a lifetime. But Chang, our brave UPP interceptor pilot, isn't doing so hot. She's got a serious case of radiation poisoning courtesy of Rodina going boom like the Death Star. As the rescue ship approaches like an Uber, Bishop, always the thinker, drops some wisdom bombs. He suggests that maybe, just maybe, the superpowers of the universe can put their differences aside. Why, you ask? Because they've got a common enemy in those pesky xenomorphs. That's an ending that's as hopeful as a Jedi's last stand. It's a glimmer of unity in the cosmic chaos, and who knows, maybe they'll form a cosmic Avengers team to take on the xenomorph menace. Alien 3, why did it fail to capture the heart of fans? You see, Alien and Aliens already had set the interstellar bar pretty darn high, and poor Alien 3 had to follow in their giant xenomorph-sized footsteps. Before it even hit the screens, the odds were stacked against it like a game of Jenga. Let's talk about the multiple versions of the movie that never saw the light of day. One of them involved a wooden planet full of monks. But nope, that idea was left floating in the black hole of unrealized concepts. Then there's the tale of an original director who got the boot right before the camera started rolling. In stepped David Fincher, a first-time director who had to deal with more rewrites than a malfunctioning space robot. And these rewrites were being scribbled down while the movie was in production. But that's just the tip of the xenomorph iceberg. Alien 3 had to carry the weight of being the third installment in a beloved franchise. The first film was a cultural phenomenon, and the sequel managed to please both die-hard fans and newcomers. So no matter what Alien 3 did, it was going to be dissected like an alien autopsy. And Alien 3 decided to go full-on downer mode. It kicked things off by offing 2 survivors from the previous film. It then proceeded to be the gloomiest story that culminated in the ultimate gut punch, the death of our beloved main character, Ellen Ripley. Throw in a final edit that chopped out entire plot points and a prison atmosphere that felt grimmer than a public bathroom, and you've got a recipe for a movie that just couldn't catch a break. While it did make a few bucks, it couldn't even come close to the astronomical success of its predecessors. Did we miss out on a masterpiece with William Gibson's Alien 3? Back in 1986, a time when the Alien franchise was a hot potato, with writers and directors all vying for their chance to play with xenomorphs. In the midst of this creativity explosion, there was a script by William S. Gibson, the granddaddy of cyberpunk. This guy practically invented the genre. His script for the next Alien installment had fans buzzing with excitement. Gibson's vision drew heavily from the first 2 Alien movies, with Corporal Hicks and the resurrected Bishop facing off against a horde of xenomorphs. Anchor Point getting a not-so-friendly visit from these nasty critters, thanks to some meddling scientists and the UPP, who just couldn't resist playing with xenomorph samples. But Gibson's script didn't just wrap up things neatly. Oh no, it ended with a teaser for a 4th film, hinting at humans finally joining forces to battle these cosmic nightmares. However, the bigwigs in Hollywood weren't exactly as impressed. They thought Gibson's script was well executed but lacking that extra cosmic oomph. They wanted something more in the line with gritty, claustrophobic horror of the original Alien. Gibson tried to make it work, but they couldn't shake their dissatisfaction, and that's when the script went over through a makeover, leading to various versions that fans would later dissect and debate. Gibson's script, though initially shelved, gained online fame and left fans hungry for an alternate Alien 3 story. But an audio drama version of Gibson's script hit the airwaves of an Audible app. It was like a gift from the sci-fi heavens, aligning more closely with the styles of Ridley Scott, Dan O'Bannon, and James Cameron, the holy trinity of Alien creators. Fans couldn't get enough. You see, following Ridley Scott's nerve-wracking rendition and James Cameron's action-packed sequel, David Fincher's Alien 3 came across as somewhat disappointing, particularly due to its abrupt disposal of two central characters. But Gibson's script breathed new life into the series, giving Hicks a chance to shine, letting Ripley take a step back, and introducing a new, even deadly xenomorph variant. It's like Gibson knew how to hit all the right sci-fi notes. In the end, the fan response to Gibson's script, along with the comics and audio drama that followed, showed that there was an appetite for an alternate Alien 3. Gibson's version would have been much more satisfying addition to the series, and fans couldn't agree more. It's like a parallel universe where Alien 3 got the sequel it deserved. Marvelous verdict. In the ever-evolving cosmos of cinema, unproduced scripts often remain as a tantalizing what-if, such as the case with the unmade script of Alien 3 by William S. Gibson. While it never made it to the big screen, its existence has left a mark on the Alien franchise's legacy. It's excited fans with the prospect of beloved characters like Hicks taking center stage once more and hinted at a broader, interconnected Alien universe. Although it initially fell by the wayside, it eventually found new life in various forms, from comics to audio dramas, proving its enduring appeal. This unproduced script remains a reflection to the power of storytelling within the sci-fi genre. It's a reminder that even in the vast expanse of the cinematic cosmos, ideas can take a life of their own, transcending the confines of a script and resonating with fans across galaxies. While it may never have graced the silver screen, it has undeniably enriched the lore of the Alien universe. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks, everyone.